word that you can use for the whole year will be management. That's the right word.
For me, Nordschleife was fantastic.
Listen, guys, Red Bull is hiding something, and the FIA just called them out on it. Max Verstappen is publicly trashing his own sport. A legend just said, "Park him," and last weekend, Max literally snuck away to race a Mercedes. Something is seriously wrong inside the Red Bull garage, and today we are breaking down everything: the scandals, the rebellion, the side quests, and the one question nobody can answer yet. Let's break it down, but before, if you want more updates and news on Max, then hit that like button and subscribe for more breakdowns. The secret weapon Red Bull was hiding. So, let's start with the thing that has rival teams absolutely furious right now. Red Bull showed up to 2026 with a very unusual design on their floor. And when other teams looked closely, they started asking questions. Here is the thing. The 2026 rules say every aerodynamic surface must have a minimum radius. Basically, no sharp edges allowed. But Red Bull's engineers looked at that rule and said, hold on, what if that sharp edge is not technically a surface? What if it is just a joint where two bodywork pieces meet? And that is exactly what they argued, because when two components are joined together, the internal boundary between them is no longer touching the airflow. So Red Bull claimed it falls completely outside the definition of an aerodynamic surface. Rival teams went straight to the FIA saying this violates the entire spirit of the rules. And here is where it gets interesting. The FIA looked at it, investigated it, and then said, yes, it is legal for 2026. But then in the same breath, they announced they are banning it for 2027 because it goes against what the rules were actually meant to do. So Red Bull found something so clever that the FIA could not punish them today, but had to rewrite the rulebook for tomorrow. That tells you everything about how dangerous this trick actually is. The engine scandal nobody is talking about. But the aero trick is not even the only controversy swirling around Red Bull right now. Before the season even started, Ferrari, Honda, and Audi all sent a formal letter to the FIA. And in that letter, they accused Red Bull and Mercedes of exploiting a compression ratio loophole worth potentially 3 to 4 tenths of a second per lap. Now, 3 to 4 tenths in Formula One is enormous. That is the difference between pole position and fifth on the grid. The rules say engines must comply with a 16:1 compression ratio, but the FIA only checks this at cold ambient temperature. Red Bull's rivals believe that through thermal expansion of internal components, the effective ratio climbs much higher once the engine heats up on track. Red Bull's own engine boss said he was confident it was legal, and even said that any engineer who missed this loophole probably should not be in Formula One. That is a level of confidence that either means they are completely clean or completely untouchable. Why Verstappen is publicly hating his own sport. Now, while all this technical drama is going on behind the scenes, Max himself has been making headlines for a completely different reason. He has been absolutely roasting the 2026 regulations in public. He called the cars Mario Kart. He compared them to Formula E on steroids. He said the regulations are not helping the longevity of his career. And Stefano Domenicali, the CEO of Formula One itself, had to personally sit down with Max and have a quiet conversation about it. Domenicali came out after that meeting and said Max cares about Formula One more than anyone, but also made it clear that a 4-time world champion saying things like this publicly carries enormous weight and can do real damage to the sport's image. Then Juan Pablo Montoya went even further and said the FIA should hit Max with enough penalty points to ban him from a race. He literally said, park him, and Toto Wolff from Mercedes, when asked if the rules would change, said zero chance. Capital letters. So Max is fighting a battle here that everyone around him is telling him he cannot win. The teammate nobody wants to be. Now here is a story that does not get enough attention. While Max is battling the regulations and the FIA, there is a young French driver named Isaac Hadjar sitting in the garage next to him. And that seat has become one of the most dangerous jobs in motorsport. Pierre Gasly got destroyed there. Alex Albon got destroyed there. Sergio Perez lasted years before getting dropped. Liam Lawson lasted 2 race weekends. Yuki Tsunoda lasted a full season before being moved to reserve driver. Hadjar himself admitted before the season that he had real concerns about taking this seat, but he earned his place by finishing his rookie year with a podium at Zandvoort and impressing everyone at Racing Bulls. Right now, he is holding his own, which in the Red Bull garage next to Verstappen already makes him one of the toughest competitors on the grid just by surviving. Coulthard says Max is not going anywhere, but here is the catch. So with all this chaos happening, the scandals, the public rebellion, the struggling car, the obvious question is whether Max is going to walk away from Red Bull. And David Coulthard, someone who knows Max personally, came out just this week and said Max will stay at Red Bull for the rest of his career. His reason is simple. No other team in Formula One would allow Max to be Max. Not McLaren, not Ferrari, not even Mercedes. But here is the catch Coulthard also mentioned. Max has a performance exit clause in his contract running until 2028, and Coulthard was very clear that if Red Bull keeps struggling, Max is the kind of person who will look his team boss in the eye and make the difficult call. McLaren's Zach Brown has reportedly already escalated his interest, so the loyalty is real, but it has a limit, and that limit is a winning car. Max sneaks away to race a Mercedes. And while all this F1 drama was unfolding, Max did something that made everyone stop and laugh a little. He went to the Nürburgring and raced a Mercedes GT3 for 24 hours straight. He called the race a bucket list moment, ran under his own Verstappen racing team banner, and put on one of the most talked about performances of the entire weekend. During a midnight stint in wet conditions, he charged through the entire field and built a massive lead. Then with just 3 hours left and his co-driver at the wheel, a drive shaft broke and ended their race while they were leading. Heartbreaking result, but the performance itself proved something important. When Max says he is bored with Formula One right now, he is not just talking, he is literally going out and racing anything he can find on weekends. The big picture. So here is where we stand right now. Red Bull got caught using a clever aero trick that the FIA allowed today but banned for tomorrow. Their engine has been surrounded by compression ratio controversy since before the season started. Max is publicly calling the 2026 regulations a joke. Domenicali had to calm him down personally, and Montoya wants him suspended. The second seat next to Max has already swallowed 5 drivers in 2 years. Coulthard says Max stays, but only if the car performs. My honest opinion, Max is not leaving Red Bull this year. But if that car is still in the midfield by the summer break, that exit clause becomes very real, and the entire driver market explodes overnight. Now, the question I want to leave with you, if Max Verstappen does leave Red Bull at the end of 2026, which team do you think actually deserves him? Drop it in the comments because I genuinely want to know what you think.